Please remember that the complete information for the class that you are about to view is at eliTheComputerGuy.com. Not only do we have our videos there, but we have part lists, diagrams, pictures, and even complete code examples. So if you are watching this video and you want more information, please go to eliTheComputerGuy.com. Welcome back. As you know, I am Eli, the Computer Guy, and in today's class, I'm going to be showing you how to add your CSS formatting onto an HTML document. So CSS is very nice because it is a way that you are able to basically format HTML text and be able to reuse that formatting on multiple different pages. So this can be very important. Imagine something like a content management system, something like a WordPress site. And so if somebody is writing blog posts, right, that one website may have hundreds or thousands of different HTML pages, and you want the text to all look the same across all of those pages. If you had to simply write out the CSS on each individual page, then if you ever needed to modify the CSS, that means you'd have to go back to 100 or 1,000 different pages and be able to manually modify it in all those different pages. Well, one of the nice things about CSS is you can have something called an external style sheet. So basically within your HTML document, within the head of the HTML document, you can reference an external style sheet where all your CSS styling is, and then everything that is printed out in your HTML document in the web browser will use the formatting from that external CSS style sheet. So that's one of the very useful things that CSS offers you. But it is important to understand when you're going to be interacting with CSS, there's actually 3 different ways in order to bring the CSS styling into your web page. The first way that a lot of people know about is, again, that external style sheet. You have a style sheet where all the CSS is written out, and then simply whenever the web page is displayed, the web browser will go to that style sheet, see what the H1 tag, the image tag, all those things are supposed to look like, and then that's what will be presented to the end user. But you also can actually add CSS to the head of an HTML document. So you can use something called the style tag and actually add a whole bunch of CSS to the head of the document. Let's say you have a web page that is only going to be one single web page. You don't want to deal with an external style sheet for whatever reason. You can actually dump it all into the head. Beyond that, the third way you can add CSS to your HTML document is in fact inline. So it looks a lot like the old HTML4 formatting looked, where you do whatever tag you're going to do, the P tag, the H1 tag, whatever else. Then you do space, and right after that you do style equals, and then you put in all of the properties and all the CSS values that you want for whatever goes between the tags that you're creating, and then that will format the HTML that way. So there are 3 different ways that you are able to add CSS to your document. Now it is important to understand this, and it's important to also understand that you can use all 3 ways of doing CSS actually at the same time. So let's say you want certain defaults for your website, but you don't want to define every single thing about how fonts will, or how text will be formatted on your website. So let's say you want all of the text on your website to be a certain font, but you're not necessarily going to say what color it should be or something like that. What you could actually do is you could have an external style sheet, and all that external style sheet will do is define what the fonts are for whatever you're going to be printing out on your HTML document. So Veranda or Arial or Times New Roman or whatever else. So you may just simply say, I want it to be this font, maybe I want it to be this size, and leave it at that. Then what you can do is then you can add CSS to the head of your page to possibly flesh out what you've already put in that external style sheet. So for this particular page, not only do I want everything coming in from that external style sheet, but I also want the text to be this color, and I want it to have this border, so on and so forth. And then one of the things that you can do is then in a line, then what happens is you can actually add additional CSS. So you can say, okay, this text that is Arial from the external style sheet, that is 40 pixels from the external style sheet, that is whatever color I said in the head of this document. Now here I want it to be underlined. So in the line I can then add that I want this particular text to be underlined, and all of those things come together, and now the text will be formatted, it will be Arial, it'll be 40, it'll be a certain color, and it will be underlined. They all come together to give you that formatting. So you can use all three different types of actually being able to bring CSS in. Now, it is important to understand that the lower levels of CSS can overwrite the higher levels of CSS. So let's say in the external style sheet, you set colors, you set certain values that for whatever reason you want to negate down at the line level. So literally what you can do is you can basically overwrite those values at the line level. So let's say you put the font as, again, Arial in that external style sheet. Well, then in the line, you could actually set the font for the tag in that particular line as New Times Roman, and that would actually overwrite what you put into the external style sheet. So basically, the things on the lowest levels trump everything else. So whatever you put in line, that will trump what's in the head of the document, and that will trump what's in the external style sheet. If you put something in the head of the document, that will trump what's in the external style sheet. So basically, having an idea of how this works can be pretty valuable. And so this is what I'm going to be explaining to you how to do today. I'm going to be showing you how to add your CSS into your HTML documents. As with everything in this world, it's really simple as long as you type out everything properly and you don't fat finger anything. So here we are at my demonstration computer. Again, I'm using a MacBook Pro, and I'm using TextEdit in order to write out this CSS. Again, for CSS and HTML, all you need is an ASCII text editor. So if you're in the Windows world, you can use Notepad. Again, in the Mac world, you can use TextEdit. In the Linux world, you can use gedit, Vim, Nano, or whatever else. Again, I just do this because I think it shows people how easy it is to be able to write this code. Now, I'm going to be showing you a lot of things today. So if you get confused, please do reference the examples. Basically, all of these examples will be printed at EliTheComputerGuy.com. So if you get confused, even if you don't get confused, I would highly recommend you actually take a look at the examples actually printed out at EliTheComputerGuy.com. Then I think everything will make a lot of sense to you. Again, I'm having to dump a lot of text at you, and if you print things improperly, it won't work. So actually being able to see this when you're typing out your code, I think will be valuable. But let's walk through this. So the first thing that I'm going to show you is an example of inline CSS. So this is where we put CSS in actual line. So again, we're calling the h1 tag, and then we're saying what the style should be. So for this, I've simply called this inline CSS.html. So it is important with this. This is a .htm or .html document. So when we open this up in a web browser, it'll actually just simply open up as an HTML document. So here what we have, again, I've stripped out all the other tags like I do in a lot of the projects so that you can simply see what I'm showing you. Again, if you're actually writing a normal document, you should write everything out properly. But here we go. So we have the h1 tag. Then what we're going to do for the inline CSS styling is we're going to say style equals, and then we're going to do double quotation marks. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put in the properties and the values of how we want this text within the h1 tag to be styled. So for this, we're going to say text-align center. So we want to align this text to the center. And then again, we're going to do semicolon. So remember the delimiters whenever you're dealing with CSS, make sure to put that semicolon in or things won't work. And so that's the first. So that's the first value and property. Then we want the color. So I want the color to be red. So color : red. And then again, even for the end one, we're going to do the semicolon. Then we're going to close the double quotation marks. Then we're going to close that side of the tag. We're going to print out the text that we want to print out. And then we're going to close the h1 tag. If we go over here, we find inline CSS.html, and we double click on it, and there we go. That's basically all there is to it. So this is inline CSS. Again, text-align to the center, so we can see it's aligned in the center. Color is red. We can see that it's red. So that is how you do inline CSS. So for a lot of you folks out there, if you're not actually building websites, let's say you're doing things like maintaining WordPress blogs or whatever, this may be how you interact with a lot of CSS, right? So you you most likely, if you're not actually administering the full site or doing a lot of work on the full site, a lot of times you're not actually going to be modifying the external style sheet. That's going to be the master style sheet. So a lot of times what you're going to do, if you just need to do simple tweaks on a page, again, on a blog post or on a page, a lot of the times the way that you're going to do that is simply with this inline CSS. So you'd simply do style equals double quotation, then you're going to put the values and such here, then you're going to close the double quotation, and then that is what's going to show up for the HTML document. Now from there, let's go and actually take a look at what's in the head. So if we go to the OnPage CSS, so this is when you do CSS, and all the CSS is actually in the head of the document. So if we go down here and we actually look at when the HTML text is printed out, we can see that these are clean tags. So it's simply the H1 tag, it's simply the P tag. There's no additional CSS down here. The reason is because these tags are referencing what you have put in the head of the document. So this is on-page CSS. So you open up the HTML here, you then open up the head tag, you then open up the style tag. So basically what is between the opening and the closing of the style tag. This is where you're going to put your CSS formatting. So for here, what I've done is I've said the body tag. So this is called the selector, but basically the body tag, I want the background color, background-color, I want that to be yellow. Then for the H1, I want that color to be orange. Again, do remember the delimiter. Then I want to align H1 to center. Then I want to go down to the P. I simply want to make the font size here. I'm going to make the font size here 30 pixels. Again, use the delimiter. Then I'm going to close the squiggly brackets, and then I'm going to close the style tag. Then I'll close the head tag. I'll open the body tag, and so that body tag is going to take on the attributes that I coded up here. Then I'm going to print out H1 on-page CSS, and then I'm going to print out with P. This is an example of on-page CSS. I'm going to close the body. I'm going to close the HTML. So we go over, and again, we just simply double click on page CSS. So again, this is onPage CSS.html. So this is still an HTML or HTML file. If we double click on this, clicked on the wrong one. If we double click on this, then we can see, okay, so on page CSS, we can see the background is yellow. We can see that the H1 text, it is orange, and it is centered on the page. And we can see that the P tag, that is in that, like that 40 pixels or that 30 pixels that I showed you before. So we can go here. Let me just bring this up again. And so again, if we take a look, so we have the style. So we create the body here. Body, background-color is yellow. So we can see the background color is in fact yellow. We go to the H1 tag. Color is orange. So we can see that the color for the H1 tag is orange. Text-align is center, and we can see that it's centered. The P tag, then we can see here, we simply want the font size for the P tag to be 30 pixels. And as you can see, you can get the idea that it's a lot larger than it normally should be. So that's 30 pixels. So this is an example of the on-page CSS. Now past this, then we get to the interesting thing of using an external style sheet. So let me close this, let me close this, let me actually close this. And then we're going to open up two documents actually. So we're going to open up the external style, the external sheet.html file. So this is the document that we're actually going to be opening up in a web browser. What we're going to see here is we're going to open up the HTML tag like we normally do. We're going to open up the head tag like we normally do. But then here what we're going to do is we're actually going to reference an external style sheet. So what we're going to say is for our CSS, go over to this different file. So we do link relation equals, and we're going to say that this is a style sheet. Then we're going to say href equals double quotation and then whatever the name or whatever the path to that style sheet is. So this style sheet is actually sitting in the exact same directory as this HTML document. So I can just reference it by style.css. But if it's in a different folder, if it's up a couple levels or down a couple levels or whatever else, basically you simply put in the path to that CSS style sheet there. Basically, past that, we go down, we close the head, We open the body. Again, we're going to have an H1 tag. This is H1. Then we're going to have the P tag. This is bolded text. We are going to close the body. We're going to close the HTML. So you'll notice here, again, there's no additional CSS. And you'll also notice when you do it like this page is very clean because you don't have all of the CSS kind of being a visual distraction. So what we can do then is we can go over and we can take a look at that style.css page. You can go take a look at this. And so with this, what you're going to do is you are going to create a .css file. So if you're going to create a style sheet, it has to be, or it should be, it should end with a .css. So the front of it can be whatever name you want. BillyBoBob.css, right? MyStyle.css, FrontPage.css. Again, remember, for one website, you might have multiple external CSS sheets for different parts of the website. So let's say you're doing a newspaper website essentially, and so the sports section should have a certain look and feel, and the news section should have a certain look and feel, and the opinion section should have a certain look and feel. So what you might do there is you might have news have its own CSS file, you may have sports have its own CSS, and you may have opinion have its own CSS. So you may actually end up having multiple external CSS files that you may have to manually modify now and then, but again, you can have different ones. You could have simply news.css, again, sports.css, whatever else. So here, all you're going to do is you're going to plug in all of the CSS. So for here, all I've done is H1 and P because I don't want to make this too complicated, but I could have the body. I could have H1, I could have H2, I could have H3, I could have all the way down to H6, I could have P, I could have image, I could have tables, I could have all kinds of stuff here, and lots of really cool stuff we'll talk about later, right? So this CSS document could theoretically be massive, right? This theoretically could be 1,000 lines of CSS, especially with every selector, every tag, you put in multiple attributes. This can get very large very quick. So just understand that what I am showing you now, again, is simply the H1 and P. This is, as I've shown you before, open the squiggly. We're going to do color, colon, we're going to make the color blue. Text alignment is going to be center. We close the squiggly. P, open the squiggly. Font weight is going to be bold. We close, again, we do the delimiter, then we close the squiggles, and that's all you do. Again, you don't have to do any additional tags. You don't have to do any additional things here. Basically, all you do is you simply print out that CSS information here. And from that, all we're going to do is we are going to go to that external sheet.html. I'm going to simply double click this in my web browser. And now we can see, this is H1, so it is blue and it is centered. This is bolded text, so that is that bolded text, right? So basically, that's what we're looking at here. So this is the H1, and this is the P as I've created. And so that's how an external style sheet works. Now from that, let's go and actually just take a look at a mixed source CSS. So let's open up the style CSS again. We're going to open this up again with text edit. So we're going to have this here. And then we're going to open up the mixed source CSS.html. So basically with this, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be bringing in values from the external style sheet, and we're going to be putting things in the head, and we're going to be putting things in line, right? So we've already seen the style sheet. This is the exact same style sheet we just used. H1P, color blue, text align center, font weight bold, yeah, whatever else. Okay, so here what we're going to do is, again, we're going to reference multiple different ways of being able to bring in CSS within one single document. So here we're going to open up the HTML. We're going to open up the head, and then we are going to link to that style sheet that we created. Just like in the previous example, link relation is a style sheet. Href equals, and again, you do the path to the style sheet, the name of the style sheet, and whatever the path is. So if it's up a couple folders, down a couple folders, in an entirely different server, whatever, you put that path in there. And then do make sure you put this little / here. Then we're going to go down and we're going to add some additional styling for this particular page. So for this, we're going to say P, and we're going to do text decoration, colon, and so we're going to make it underlined. Right? So it's going to be underlined. So not only is the text going to be bolded, but it's also going to be underlined. Then what we're going to do is we're going to then close the style tag here. We're going to close the head. We're going to go down to body. And then from here, what we're going to do is we're going to add some inline styling here. So we're going to call that P tag. So the P is already bold from the external style sheet. And then we've underlined it within the head of this particular HTML page. And now what we're going to say is we also want it to be aligned to the center. So all of these things will come together. So this is text created from multiple CSS sources. If I go over, when I double click on the mixed source CSS.html, what we can see is, okay, so it's bolded. That comes from the external style sheet. It's underlined, and it is now centered. Now, one of the things I do want to show you is, again, things that are on the lower level. Again, inline trumps things like what's on the external style sheet. So we take a look at the external style sheet. We can see font weight :bold. So what I could do is I could simply do Control C, and I could go here. And so I'm saying inline, I want it to be centered, and space Control V, I want it to be, let's say, normal. So now what this is going to do is it's going to make the font weight normal. And so even though this has been defined in the external style sheet, since I'm doing this inline, and the inline is going to trump what's in the external style sheet. So I hit save. Then I go up here and I do refresh, and now you can see it's normal. The reason that it's normal is even though it was set bold in the external style sheet, down here in line, I have set it to normal, and there you go. So these are the basic ways that you can add CSS to your HTML document. Again, you can use an external style sheet, you can do it in the head of the document, or you can do it inline. Do remember, inline trumps the head, it trumps the external style sheet. Head trumps the external style sheet, and then the external style sheet. Again, that's a good way you can create a default styling for all of your documents and simply have all of your HTML documents reference back to that one style sheet. So there you go. Now you have a basic understanding of how to bring CSS into your HTML document. So in a previous class, I showed you how to do the basic syntax of using the selector, having the property, having the value, again, using the squiggly and using the delimiters where need be. And so now I have then showed you how to actually bring that CSS into your HTML document. So again, you can have that external style sheet. That again is going to be a very valuable thing if you're going to have a web page with multiple different pages on it. Basically, all of those pages can go back and simply reference that one style sheet. You modify something in that style sheet, all 10,000 pages are modified auto-magically. You don't have to go to every single one of those pages to modify things. Past that, again, if you want to do styling for a document for whatever reason, let's say you're not going to have a lot of different pages, you want everything to be in one document, you can put all the CSS in the head of your document. It makes a big, ugly, nasty document. But you can do it. It works. It's functional. I would recommend for most people, don't do that. Maybe do like a couple of tweaks. Again, if you want the text on a particular page to be printed in a particular color, like maybe doing that in the head makes sense, right? But in general, I would argue you should probably have that external style sheet in order to deal with things on the page. And then past that, you can do inline. And I would argue for most people, again, unless you're actually fully building websites, for most people that are modifying blog posts, sometimes they go from a WYSIWYG editor to they have to go down to the HTML and tweak things. Most of the time, they're going to be modifying things basically using inline CSS. Oh, I want this text to be bold. Okay, let me do the weight of bold. Oh, I need it to be centered. Let me make it to be centered. So I would actually argue for most people, they're going to be using CSS inline, even though, again, if you're going to be building websites, especially large websites, you would want to be using that external style sheet. So this is one of those things you just get in there. You play with. Again, with all this stuff, you have the properties, you have the values. Again, to be clear, this is paint by numbers. Tags or selectors, as they're called, they have certain properties. Those properties have certain values. again, you just pick and choose and you type things out. You're not being creative at this point in time. You're not pulling completely new whatever's properties out of your butt or anything like that. It's paint by numbers. This is a selector. These are the options that are available to you. This is what you do. Go on from there. So hope that makes a little sense about basically how CSS works. So as always, I enjoyed doing this class and look forward to seeing you on the next one. If you like the content that I create, please think about going to EnlineTheComputerGuy.com and becoming a member or donating. Please understand that all of the educational videos are in front of the paywall. That includes the videos, that includes the notes, the diagrams, and the code example. All of that is freely available and in front of the paywall. But if you want to watch opinion videos or if you want to be able to comment, you do need to become a member. Membership is $5 a month or $60 a year and gives you access to those opinion videos and the ability to comment. If you don't want to become a member, you just want to give a one-time donation, there's also a donate button where you can do that. Please understand, in order to provide the education that I am, it does cost money. Servers cost money, equipment costs money, travel costs money. All of these things cost a reasonable amount of money, and the fact of the matter is YouTube's advertising program no longer supports creators the way that it used to. So if you want these classes to continue to stick around and you find them to be valuable, please think about either becoming a monthly member or donating a few dollars for this project.